A software engineer earning $400,000 per year spends $800,000 every single month on rent. That's not a luxury penthouse overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. That's not even a particularly fancy two-bedroom apartment. That's just the cost of living in the place where their job exists. And here's where it gets worse. They're spending 24% of their gross income on housing alone, and that doesn't include utilities, taxes, insurance, food, or transportation. This is the Bay Area housing trap, and it's snaring some of the highest-paid workers in the world. Welcome back to Data Fortune Research. Today, we're breaking down one of the most counterintuitive wealth paradoxes in America, why the top 1% of earners in one of the world's richest regions struggle to build wealth at all. Let's start with the numbers that define the top tier of the tech industry. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median salary for software developers in the San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose metropolitan area sits around $165,000, well above the national median for the profession. But that's the median. We're talking about a different group today. The engineers pulling in $300,000, $400,000, sometimes $500,000 or more in total compensation when you factor in stock options, bonuses, and RSU vesting schedules. How rare are these earners? According to IRS Statistics of Income data, the threshold for the top 1% of household income in the United States stands at approximately $597,000 annually. In the Bay Area tech corridor, a single software engineer, not a household of two earners. Just one person can cross that threshold before their 35th birthday. These are genuinely elite earners. They're in the rarefied air of American income distribution. So you'd expect these people to be building generational wealth, right? They should be accumulating assets, buying property, investing aggressively, and positioning themselves for early retirement. The data tells a different story. Here's the critical piece. Housing costs in the San Francisco Bay Area have detached from income growth entirely. Data from the U.S. Census Bureau and Rental Market Analysis shows that median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco proper ranges from $3,200 to $3,800 per month. A two-bedroom, the minimum for someone with a family or a home office, runs $4,500 to $5,500 monthly. But if you're earning $400,000 and want to live somewhere with reasonable schools, commute times, and amenities, you're looking at $6,000 to $8,500 per month in rent or a mortgage on a $2 million property that costs even more. Let's do the math on that $400,000 earner in detail, because this is where the trap becomes visible. Gross annual income, $400,000. That sounds incredible, but now subtract federal income tax. California has a progressive tax structure, and at this income level, marginal federal rates hit 35% plus California state income tax at 3% on income over $320,000. That's roughly $188,000 in federal and state taxes annually, 47% of gross income. We're left with $212,000 net. Now housing. $8,000 per month times 12 months equals $96,000 annually. On a $212,000 net income, that's 3% of take-home pay, well above the 30% threshold that financial research from the Federal Reserve suggests is sustainable for wealth building. Add property tax, insurance, utilities, and you're easily pushing 50% of take-home pay to housing-related expenses. That leaves $116,000 for everything else. Food, transportation, childcare if applicable, student loan repayment for many tech workers, healthcare, insurance premiums beyond housing, and any discretionary spending. A family of 3 or 4 living on $116,000 after housing isn't poor by national standards, but it's not the financial freedom you'd expect from a $400,000 salary. Compare this to a software engineer earning the same $400,000 in Austin, Texas. Texas has no state income tax. Federal taxes on $400,000 are around $110,000, leaving $290,000 net. Rent for a comparable two-bedroom apartment in Austin's tech corridor runs $200 to $800 per month, let's say $500. That's $30,000 annually, or just 3% of net income. Housing-related expenses, generously estimated at $45,000, consume only 5% of take-home pay. Suddenly, the Austin engineer has $245,000 per year available for savings, investing, and living expenses. Same talent, same salary, wildly different financial reality. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances shows that net worth accumulation is heavily dependent on housing cost burden. Households spending more than 30% of income on housing have significantly lower median net worth compared to those spending less, even when controlling for income. For top earners, this gap becomes profound. A $400,000 earner in a low-cost state with housing consuming 15% of income has roughly 3 times the annual savings capacity of a Bay Area counterpart with identical earnings. Let's project this over 10 years. The Bay Area engineer, constrained by the 45% housing burden, might save $60,000 to $80,000 annually. Let's say $70,000, accounting for taxes on investment returns and living costs. Over a decade, that's $700,000 in accumulated wealth before investment returns. The Austin engineer with a 15% housing burden can save $200,000 to $250,000 annually. Over the same decade, that's $2 million, more than 3 times as much. Yet the Bay Area engineer is making the same money. The only difference is geography and housing costs. But there's a deeper trap embedded in this scenario that the data reveals. Many Bay Area tech workers don't move. They stay year after year, telling themselves that their career requires proximity to Silicon Valley, that leaving means missing opportunities, that the salary bump from staying outweighs the costs. The research on job mobility in tech actually contradicts this. Studies of tech worker career trajectories show that engineers who relocate to lower-cost metros often receive 10–15% salary premiums over remote or relocated positions, nowhere near the 45% increase in housing cost burden they'd avoid. Moreover, there's a psychological component documented in behavioral economics research: lifestyle creep. When housing consumes 45% of net income and you're already stretched, you have less margin for error. Health emergencies, job transitions, market downturns. These events that might be manageable for $400,000 earner in Austin become genuine threats to financial stability in the Bay Area. The engineer becomes locked in. They can't afford to take risks, negotiate hard, or pursue passion projects that might pay less. They're trapped by the very geography that made them wealthy. The data also reveals something counterintuitive about generational wealth. According to Federal Reserve data on wealth distribution, net worth at the top 1% threshold for households under 40 is approximately $2 million. However, this figure masks significant regional variation. Bay Area top 1% earners in their late 30s often have net worth between $1.5 and $2.5 million, dramatically below the national 1% threshold, primarily because their housing costs have suppressed savings. Meanwhile, top 1% earners in lower-cost metros routinely exceed $4 million net worth by the same age, because they've had more years to compound savings and invest in assets beyond primary residences. This is the hidden cost of the Bay Area housing trap. It doesn't just reduce annual savings. It delays wealth accumulation by an estimated 10 to 15 years compared to similar earners in lower-cost regions. That's a decade of lost compound returns on investments, lower home equity accumulated, and reduced financial flexibility during prime earning years. The research shows no indication this gap is closing. Housing cost growth in the Bay Area continues to outpace wage growth even for top earners. The median home price in San Jose has exceeded $1.6 million according to recent census data. That's $1.6 million for a single-family home in a place where the median household income is $150,000. The math doesn't work unless you're a top 1% earner, and even then, it leaves almost no margin for wealth accumulation beyond the illiquid home equity. For data-driven professionals considering the Bay Area, the research is clear. Unless your specific role commands a significant salary premium that's unavailable elsewhere, the financial math favors relocation to a lower-cost tech hub. The quality of life trade-off might still favor the Bay Area for some: access to networks, cultural amenities,